Hi there, and today I'm going to go a little bit deeper into facial liquify, and this is really using Photoshop's Liquify tool to make changes to the face, typically in a portrait image. And we've got an image of Mia here, and I think it's worth saying that it can be a slightly controversial topic. In the past, some people have sort of expressed objections to photo editors changing people's faces, altering facial features, or altering their bodies or parts of their bodies in the hopes of creating a better, more impactful, more beautiful image. This is a personal thing. I sort of fairly obviously do not have a problem with this. I'm quite happy using facial liquify. Although I'm always aware that this is an area where the subtle hand is very much in evidence. And usually if you're making kind of big changes to someone's face, it's going to end up looking ridiculous. So when I am using facial liquify, what I'm looking to do is to make pretty small edits and changes to areas of the face in hope of generally improving the look of things. And sometimes I'm looking to perhaps reduce the prominence of a particular facial feature, or to just kind of balance things out a bit more, or perhaps if my capture has resulted is giving me the feeling that a certain facial feature is a bit sort of overpowering or too large or something like that. I can do something about it, but I have to be, must emphasize, I have to be pretty gentle with this to get a good result. So if we look at the Mia image here, I'm just going to quickly make a markup layer which I can use to just to highlight that I'm probably going to work on the ear, which I think is beautiful, but it's come out slightly too prominent in this image for me. I'm going to look at the nose, whether I'm probably just going to improve the nose very slightly, straighten it slightly. And the other area, which is usually of interest to me, is the chin and the jawline, where I may decide to make some gestures which will kind of slim that down a little bit. And that's an area that I'm often looking at with Liquify. But these are the main areas we're going to concern ourselves with here. So I'm just going to make myself a copy layer to work on. I'll just switch off my markup layer now. And let's go into Liquify. Filter, Liquify. And with this ear, we'll look at this first. In the situation where we have a sort of complete feature like the ear, I think what I would often think of trying is to use the pucker tool and to reduce the whole thing. So if I can create a brush and just gently dab onto the area of the ear, and as I adjust my brush, it'll affect the image differently, so you can experiment with that. And I'm just with the stylus here, I'm just gently dabbing onto the ear with the brush, just very gently, aiming to reduce the size and prominence of the of this facial feature. If we take the preview off, we can see the original. And I think very much that in the approach to this, you just need to relax, take your time, and don't be afraid of doing it again. I can just step back using Control Z. If I'll just do some pucker again, and I can also use the reconstruct tool up here. So if I just paint over the area with the reconstruct tool, it will has the same effect as the Control Z. It will just restore it to what it was before. So if I go back round again now, I'll do my pucker, do some pucker work on this again. I could equally use, if I wanted to use forward warp, to move the but of course forward warp is, as you'll discover, forward warp is a bit more about sort of moving the edge of something, whereas the pucker tool is able to make a computation about the whole area and try to reduce it. So for this kind of thing, I think the pucker tool is probably my preferred weapon. And so I can just, have a couple of goes at that, and as you can see, I quite significantly reduced the size of the ear, which is really all I was wanting to do. If we turn now to the nose, I'm wanting to just make a very small change to the nose. So I could, if I just use the pucker tool, I don't know if you can see that that does a rather nice job on the nose, but it also affects the eye behind it, which I don't really want. So just to show you, if I select the freeze mask tool here, I can, and I'm just going to zoom in here. If I paint onto the eye, you can see the red mask appearing. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm saying to Photoshop, I'm masking off this area, so whatever operations I might do shouldn't affect this area. This area should be masked or protected from the change you make. So I've applied my mask there. If I now use the pucker tool on the nose, sorry, it's just complaining because the preview isn't on. Get my brush to the right size so I'm not affecting anything else. Okay, I should now be able to use the Thor mask tool, which is there to remove the Thor mask. And if I get rid of that, we will now find that we've successfully straightened the area of the nose. And when I toggle that on and off, you can see that we've been able to make our change to the nose without affecting the eye, the area of the eye behind it. So that's a technique, using the Thor freeze and Thor masking to protect a given area of the image from your particular Liquify change can be quite useful. And now we had the chin, didn't we? I was going to probably use face aware Liquify to just look at pulling the chin in slightly, although I notice that seems to be having quite an effect on the lips as well, which I'm not too crazy about that. So I might be tempted to, I could consider running pucker on the chin just to pull that in a tiny bit. Once again, I've got the problem here where I could be affecting the fingers. But I think I'm going to be okay there. I'm just not really doing a huge amount there. I'm just drawing the chin up slightly. And if I experiment with the jawline, I can look at what happens when I pull the jawline in. Perhaps just a small amount of that. And the face width, once again, I could just reduce the face width a little bit there. So that's, I hope you can see that that's hopefully a good example of the kind of operations we can do in facial liquify to enhance and beautify the face somewhat in a fairly unobtrusive way. These are small enhancements that we're making. Okay, the other thing was the hair. I was just going to look at. I might use forward warp tool to just kind of move this hairline around a bit, the outline of the hair. I'm just trying to tuck that hair in a bit, although it's I think there's probably a better way of doing that. Well, probably not perfect, is it? What I was going to say was I'd probably use the patch tool to just remove that area of hair. But anyway, that's not important. So there we are. That's we'll just come out of that liquify, and that's the end result. Okay, if we turn to another image, this is another portrait image of Gracie in this one. And once again, I'm interested in her nose and her ear. I find this angle, she's got a beautiful face, but this angle seems to be making the bridge of her nose rather prominent, and it's making the ear look kind of, seems rather prominent to me. So I'll just make my copy layer, go into my Liquify filter, and again here I could use forward warp, and just very gently sort of nudging the outline of the nose in to straighten it slightly. And I might use the pucker tool to just very gently, I've just in one brush stroke there to slightly reduce the size of the nose. And that's it really. I was also looking at I would, once again, as with the other one, I might use pucker to just see if I thought I might just reduce the size of her ear slightly, like so. That's good. And once again, I think those are, quite good examples of the level of the. If we pull out, we can see a bit easier, can't we? Of the sort of amount of change we're going to make in our facial liquify operation, which should be pretty gentle. And once again, as I say, you can kind of iterate over this, try it, go back over it with Reconstruct if you want to start again, have another go, perhaps take a slightly different angle on it, depending as always on how much time you've got. And just another example here, this is another portrait image. I think I've done a bit of facial cleanup on this already. So we'll just create a fresh copy layer and we'll go into Liquify. And I think here I'm looking at her nose. I might try forward warp. That's a bit too much. So I'm just straightening that nose a tiny bit there. As you can see when I toggle it. And I might decide to just pucker. Take this whole area of the end of her nose and just pucker that very gently. So I just reduce the size of it a tiny bit. Just see whether I want to pull the chin up here a little bit. Maybe pull the jawline in a bit. And the face width. I think this is a good example of an image where we really don't want to do a whole lot. There are just maybe a couple of little dabs of Liquify that can make things better, but obviously, once again, if we overdo it, we're completely wasting our time. So the subtle hand is very much in evidence here. Okay, and I would just save that, and then I think we're done there. We'll just pull back and just... if I toggle that, that's the layer with the Liquify on. You can just see that it's actually made a change to the face, which is probably hardly noticeable to the average viewer, but it's just improved things, tightened things up a tiny bit, and so on. So there we are. That's pretty much my approach to facial Liquify, which I don't use all the time, but I will quite freely use it if I think it's going to improve the image. So there we are, and once again, thanks very much for watching and listening, and see you on the next one.